Hey there, my name is Bill Hawthorn. We may not have met yet, but I am a creative real estate entrepreneur. What that means is I have for 21 plus years bought hundreds of properties on my own and hundreds of properties with my students. I've showed a lot of people how to do creative real estate financing, creative real estate deals, however you want to look at it. And I have a lot of experience with using my core 7 strategies that will give you a lot of flexibility with what your seller wants to do. With the type of transaction they want to do, or how you pay them the money, and all that kind of stuff. And today, I'd like to show you one of those core strategies as a coach or mentor, showing you how I would show one of my paying clients. So what I'm going to do is I had an event that I did, and I took a short clip out of the event that shows you what we call a slot deal. Slot like you pull the bandit arm, and you put your money in, and you win, and the money comes out and it goes ding 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 ding. It's kind of started out as a joke, but the acronym or the letters mean sandwich, lease, option, transfer. Now here's the thing that I want you to pay attention to is wholesaling is dead because of the slot deal. And the reason why is because when you're doing wholesale deals, you're looking for properties, at low prices, 40, 50, 60 cents on a dollar. A slot deal is purchasing the property at 100% of its value. So you're able to actually pay full price for the property and still make 3, 5, 10 grand or more. I've had guys make as much as 80 or 100 grand on these deals. Okay, so I wanted to take a couple minutes and show you the math on how it works with this clip that I have for you. And then once the clip is over, I'll come back and we'll finish up. Okay, so here's the clip. So take notes and enjoy. I'll be back. Basically, this is the 7 deals, okay? So here's what happens. A slot deal is when you actually rent a property from a person or a seller or a landlord, whatever you want to call it. Which, by the way, if you've rented a property for yourself in the past and you lived in that property and you had a landlord and you signed a lease, you are about 85% of the way there of knowing how to make money with real estate. Because you could make money just knowing how a lease works. So basically a slot deal is a sandwich, lease, option, transfer. If you look at it, this means loan to value. So that means how much do they owe compared to how much it's worth, the value, right? So if they owe $100,000 and it's worth $100,000, they have no equity, right? And by the way, equity means profit. That means if you sell a property for $100,000 and you owe $80,000, there's $20,000 difference, right? That's a trick, because what most people don't talk about, especially A&E, when they talk about these numbers on A&E on this flip that house shit, crap, bullshit stuff, is they don't put in there the expenses. They don't put in there the cost to sell. There is a cost to sell anything. I don't care what it is. So usually the first 10 to 12 to 15% of any sale goes to the cost to sell. It goes to the realtor. It goes to 3%. It's 5 to 6% for realtor, 3% usually national average, 3% for negotiating because not everybody pays full price. There's 3% for repairs. Even if you think the house is gorgeous, it's not up to code, and the guy that's charging $400 to do the repairs is going to find something wrong, and he spooks your seller. So now it becomes, he spooks your buyer. And it now becomes bribe money because now you got to bribe your buyer into signing the contract. So there's 3%. And then there's 3% for actual closing costs. Just the conveyance tax alone to convey a piece of property from buyer to seller or from seller to buyer, whichever way you're doing it, it's 1% minimum. So you're selling a $100,000 property, it's $1,000 just for conveyance tax. And most people don't know these costs. So the biggest confusion we have in real estate, and the biggest thing that you can do for any seller, is to educate them on the cost to sell. And if you go to my website and you go to that where all the courses are, the free courses, you'll get all that information in there. I go over all of it in there. Okay, the loan to value video will show you how to do that. Okay, my point is that most sellers don't know that there's a cost to sell. They think that they just pay the realtor 5% or 6% and they're done. Part of the cost to sell is that, taxes, for example, property taxes. So most property taxes go from January to June 30th. So if you buy the house in March, that means you have to prorate the taxes. So that means somebody's giving back money or getting money in the deal. That's part of the 3%. Right? So people don't talk about this. It's like this hidden, most obvious secret to everybody, and they don't talk about it, right? So the equity is really the amount of money you're getting at the closing minus your expenses, right? So if you sell for $100,000 and you're getting $90,000 at the closing because there's 10% in closing costs, then the equity is really from the $90,000 to what you owe, not from the $100,000 to what you owe. So hopefully I explained that. It's your profit, okay? An option is a funny thing. An option agreement is the secret in my life, in your life, if you choose to listen to me. The option agreement is an agreement where you could where the seller could give you an option to purchase. In other words, it's a one-page document, and it says on there that you have the right to purchase their property or go sell their property, right? So an option agreement means that if Jim is selling a house and he's asking $100,000, as long as I bring Jim $100,000 within the time period of that option agreement, he'll sell it to me because he signed the document saying he would. So if I go sell the property for $110,000 and the buyer brings $110,000 to closing, I get $10,000, Jim gets $100,000. Now here's the amazing thing. Just like stock market options, most of my options, I can sign an option agreement. Well, the law says legal tender, which means paper money. So you can sign an option agreement legally with somebody for $1. For a long time, I used $10. Nowadays, I use $100. Okay, so I can sign an option agreement with somebody saying that I have the right to buy their house for the next 90 days, give them $100, and oh yeah, by the way, it doesn't say I have to. It says if I back out, the only thing I lose is my $100. I don't have to buy the house. I just lose the $100 because the seller doesn't have to give it back to me. And oh yeah, by the way, that seller can go find another buyer. And if they do, they got to give us written notice saying they have another buyer, so we stop marketing. Okay, so an option. Go ahead.
That last part that you just said, can you go over that again? With the after you talked about the option, right? $100, I understood that, but that last thing you just said.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So the $100 gives you the right to buy the property. So right. It's not a verbal agreement. It's something in writing.
Yeah.
So what happens is it can be if you want it to be. It's not an exclusive right because your seller can change their mind.
Yeah.
So if they change their mind, they have to give you something in writing and say they've changed their mind. Or if they have another buyer, they can if you haven't presented them a buyer, right?
Yeah.
They can send you a letter or something in writing or text saying, "Hey, I found another buyer. I'm going to break my option agreement with you now."
During
they
the
could
option
do that,
period, right?
As long as it's within the 90 days or whatever you set up. If you did a 90-day option and it's within the 90 days, they could do that.
If they
or
break the
vice
option,
versa. If you decide you don't want to sell it because, they gave you an option agreement for $100,000 and everybody's coming to you and saying, this house is a piece of crap. It's only worth 30,000 and you don't want to waste your time on it. You can send them a letter saying, I'm not in the option agreement anymore.
Bill, if they find another buyer, are they obligated to return your $100? Your
No,
$100?
you lose your option consideration deposit.
Even if they break it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why you
Thank
don't
you.
use more than $100. I mean, you could do it for $1. I mean, the first time I did it, I gave the guy literally on the front lawn of his house, I gave him a $10 bill and I made $18,000. Took me 2.5 months to do it, but I did it.
Nice.
Right. And that's not so easy to do these days, but this was, 10, 15 years ago. Right. So the law says you have to have legal tender, which means paper money. So you just got to make sure. And nowadays, I don't even give them money. I actually write a check, so I have a receipt for it. So my bookkeeper knows what I'm doing. Go ahead.
So if you have a 3-month option period that they sign with you, the seller signs with you, they can break it and bring in a buyer of their own during that time?
Yep.
They can.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll tell my sellers, if I have a tough deal, I'll tell my seller, listen, give me a 90-day option. Because first of all, the realtor is going to want 6 months, so I'm going to do it in 90 days. Right? So I'm going to tell them, no problem. Go sign an agreement with the realtor. So you want to list it with a realtor, no problem. Just tell the realtor that they have to exclude me from their contract, because if I sell, I'm not giving the realtor any money. And you aren't either. So let them know you have an option agreement with me and that you have to exclude me or your company or whatever you put on the option. You need to exclude me from their contract. So if I bring you a buyer, I don't want to hear the realtor client. And some of the realtors won't do this. If they know they have an option with you, they won't sign a contract. They won't sign a contract with the seller because they know we're better than they are a lot of times.
So Bill, is the objective to kind of get the deal from the realtor? Is it more beneficial for the seller to not have to pay the realtor and we get our money off top?
Yeah, like I said, when I
they have to pay.
Like I said, when I started, if I have somebody that's giving me a hard time, it's a last ditch effort for me to tell them, well, why not have me and the realtor? You got two of us selling for you. Why not? Let's have a competition here. Right? I mean, right now you could do that. There's certain times. Peter from the podcast just recently had this epiphany, like, we never use options. Options are only on an up market when the prices keep going up and up and up and up. The only reason why we use options is because you call somebody up and you say to them, would you consider taking monthly payments? No. Okay, what's the best you can do? Well, they're selling for 100,000. The best I could do is 95. Okay, would you do 90? I might consider it, right? So then you get a 10% discount in there, right? And then you can go sell the property and make that 10% because the market is just full of buyers and you'll find somebody quick. When the market's the other way around and there's not a lot of buyers, there's too many buyers, too many houses and not enough buyers, because right now there's too many buyers, not enough houses. When you have too many houses, not enough buyers, we don't use options at all. The only time we use options is when we put them with a slot deal or a rent to own. We put them with leases, right? So when we sell a house, we sell it on a rent with an option to purchase. But because we know what options are, we sell those option agreements for 3, 5, 10% down. So the buyer is going to give us, so you're going to buy an option agreement for $100, and then you're going to, from your seller, and then you're going to go sell it to your buyer for $10,000. You didn't buy and sell a house, you bought and sold an option agreement. This is like stock market. You don't, that's why I tell you the house is the last thing you need to check. The only thing you need to check with a house is how popular will it be with your buyers. If it's not going to be popular with your buyers, like it's a 10,000 square foot house and it's got one bedroom, that's not popular with buyers. You're just going to struggle to try to sell it, right? If it's a $180,000 house and they're asking $230,000, that's not going to be popular with buyers. So when somebody's talking to you about selling a house, always bounce it up against what do you think the market's doing? So if they're hitting you with $180,000, right, and you're thinking, shit, the houses in that neighborhood only sell for $150,000. Well, then where are you going? You got to bounce it against whatever the market's doing. Go ahead, Jim.
I was curious, you keep bringing up about the market. Exactly how do you keep the pulse or the temperature of the market, how it's going? How do you keep checking on that?
So you take the address that you're looking at and you type it into Google and you look at all the websites. You take 5 numbers, add them all up, and then divide by 5, and that's the average price of the house.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I also use PropStream. PropStream is a $97 a month service. PropStream is the investor's MLS. It tells you when they sold, how much they sold for, who owns it, taxes, all that kind of stuff, right? All right, I want to move on because I want to do some deal structuring. So rent to own, the difference between a slot deal, a sandwich lease option, and a rent to own is up here. We sign a lease agreement an option agreement with the seller. We give it to the buyer. We take our fee and we leave. We don't stay in the deal. There's no money monthly. And rent to own, we're going to ask them for 15% equity and 20% cash flow. So we stay in the deal. We pay the rent. We collect the rent from our buyer. Okay, so that's why it's 85%, because you're going to get 15% worth of equity and you need to get at least 20% worth of cash flow. Otherwise, you don't stay in the deal. Get the deed is a subject to. What that means is the mortgage stays in the person's name and you continue to make their mortgage payments. It's kind of like an assumable mortgage. So the mortgage stays in their name. You don't have to go apply and get a mortgage. It stays in their name. Go ahead. Okay, so rehab retail is just that. That's fix and flip. Wholesale, I don't need to explain that. And owner financing, which is usually done on free and clear properties. But if they have a lot of equity, like they owe $80,000 and they're selling for $300,000, they got a lot of equity, then we can do owner financing. Okay. Any questions with any of that? I'm sure we can talk all night, for days, a whole weekend on these deal structures. But for now, I just
question.
Yeah.
Question is owner financing and subject to the same thing?
No.
Or it's totally different?
Yeah. So subject to the slang, it's very difficult to understand. I've been doing this 20 years, and my wife still asks me what subject to is. So subject to is slang. So if you have a house and I'm buying the house, and the mortgage on that house will say is $80,000. You took a mortgage, we'll say, for $80,000. Okay. And you agreed to the bank to pay them back $80,000. You agreed to give them 5% interest. You agreed to pay for 20 years. And you agreed that if you were late, they were going to do this. And all these agreements that you made with the bank, those are all the rules. So when I come along and say, I'm going to take over your mortgage, it's subject to all those rules. I'm assuming all of those rules that you agreed to with the bank, which is subject to. I'm taking over the loan, subject to all the promises you made the bank I need to do. So it's subject to all your promises. I now own them. Okay.
Bill?
Yeah.
Subject to, I'm sorry, is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Which was it on the list?
Subject to is number 4, getting the deed.
Getting deed. Got it. Subject to. Thank you.
We call it get the deed because subject to is a touchy subject with some people. It takes all night for them to understand it. Okay, so what happens is when you take over the mortgage, the seller gives you the deed, puts it in your name, which they can do. They can pass a deed and not pay off the loan, and then you make the payments and do it that way. Okay? Owner financing means that the owner is giving you a loan. Okay, usually it's free and clear money. But if they have a mortgage, you can also do owner financing if they owe more. Okay, it's a little confusing, but there's specific. Did I answer the question? Because I could talk for another hour on that one subject, and I don't want to do that.
I'm good. Just one other
Yeah.
last question with get the deed.
Yeah.
In this market with the interest rates going up, do you think there's going to be a high possibility of those in the future, near future?
My whole play right now is all about subject to, because think about this. For 10 or probably 13 or 14 years, we've been at low interest, right?
Yeah.
So we've been at what, 4%? It hasn't been above 4% until now.
Mhm.
So think of this. If you buy a house a year from now and the interest rate is 7% and you're taking over a mortgage at 4%, is that going to help you?
Absolutely. But do you think the banks will allow it? Most mortgages don't have those subject to clauses in it, right? They want money on.
Yeah, if you know how to do it, you can either put it into a trust or we do wraparound mortgages. Steve,
Gotcha.
Is it Steve? If you do a one-on-one free consultation with me, which you'll be able to do, I can explain all this. It's so popular right now that I've actually in the last year I've run into 3 or 4 attorneys that actually specialize in subject to.
Gotcha. All right, no problem. Thank you.
But you are right. There is a due on sale clause. And a lot of people worry about that. But just realize this: the trick to a due on sale clause is this. When you get a mortgage from a bank, a mortgage is a misnomer. It's not the correct name. So when you go borrow money from the bank, they write a note. The note is all the terms we just talked about. It's how much you're going to pay, how much you're borrowing, how much the interest, if you're late, if it burns down. All these things are in the note. Okay, so there's a note between you and the lender. Okay, and what happens is that note is like toilet paper. It's useless if you don't have any money. If you don't pay it, you don't have any capital or any money, then it's useless. So what they do is they take that note and they attach it to the house and they use the house as collateral. So the mortgage is the device that connects the note and the house together so that there's collateral on the note. Okay, so the mortgage is not the money. The mortgage is the thing that connects the note and the collateral together. The mortgage, so if you default, then the deed is in your name and the mortgage is in your name. The bank has to go sue you to get the deed back in their name, and that's called a foreclosure. And the mortgage is what goes to court, not the note.
Okay.
So it can collateralize. That's a little complicated, but did you get it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So here's my point. When you're doing subject to, if you don't break that collateral, then the bank's cool. As long as the bank has their note and you're paying them and the collateral is still stuck to the property and you didn't break it so they can foreclose, they won't bust your balls. It's just that simple. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm sure there's a few nuances we'll talk about.
Yeah. Okay, good. If you make a one-on-one with me, I will gladly explain all this to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Hopefully you followed along with that. I know that there wasn't much of a screen difference there. Sometimes I draw it out. But in this particular case, I just wanted to explain to you one of the type of transactions that I do. There are 6 other types of transactions. So at this particular point, if you were interested in what I was saying and you want to hear more, if you go down into the down into the description, you'll find a link there. And I have a 10-part series that goes through all of these different types of scenarios and how you would use them, how you would purchase the property, and how you would sell the property, and all the math in between to show you exactly how you could make money with creative real estate like within the next 30 days. Okay, this 10-part series shows all. You'll get it over the course of a 7-day period, so it's quick learning. Most of the videos are about 30 minutes long. Some are a little bit shorter, and you'll get lots of information. So just click on the link in the description and it will take you to that page where you can sign up for that. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll be well on your way on knowing how to do creative real estate deals. It's a lot of information. So hopefully you'll take advantage of my offer to you, and we'll see you on the other side. Okay? Thanks for spending time with me today.